Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so happy you're joining me again today for another reverse confetti card. There's actually a blog hop going on that I'll make sure to link below so you can check out all the inspiration along the hop. Now for today's card, I am doing an Eclipse die cutting technique. I love this technique whenever I don't know how to break up a background or to break up a larger image like I am doing here. I am using the Hello Daisy stamp set by Reverse Confetti. You can see mine is a little bit stained because I used some staining colored ink on it before, but that absolutely doesn't change the way it stamps or the way it functions. It still stamps beautifully, as you will see in a minute. Now, whenever I have a larger stamp, I like to cut my cardstock a little bit too wide and too large for an A2 size card or whatever size I'm going for. That way I can make sure that the stamp hangs off the edge like I like it usually. And it gives me a lot of room in my MISTI to work with, because the closer you stamp to the edges of your MISTI, the harder it is to get a nice crisp image. So this way I can stamp as far away from the edge as possible while still having a lot of that image onto my actual card. I'm stamping it twice with my favorite things Extreme Black ink. Now I have to admit, I was planning on after coloring stamping it again, but I completely forgot to do that before I cut my panel down. So yeah, usually these days, I stamp it first in an alcohol marker friendly ink, the My Favorite Things ink. Then I can color it in, and afterwards I can stamp it again when I leave the stamp in my MISTI. I can just stamp it again with VersaFine Onyx Black and emboss it with clear gloss superfine embossing powder. I really like clear gloss embossed lines. It's just my preference. It takes a little extra step with alcohol markers because you can't do it before you color. Alcohol markers and embossing don't mix. The alcohol markers will rub away or eat away at the embossing powder. So the embossing powder will either disappear or just lose its shine, which defeats the purpose in my opinion. And yeah, so if you do it beforehand, you risk just losing your time embossing and just losing your embossing powder. But it also is bad for your markers. They can gunk up and it's just not a pretty thing. So don't emboss before you do some alcohol marker coloring. But you can do it afterwards. I just forgot this time. So I'm doing some really simple coloring on these flowers. There are a lot of flowers, but I'm trying to keep my colors to a minimum. So I'm using some really light blues for the daisies. I had planned to make them a little bit more white looking, but I definitely failed at that. I still like the light blue. And I used a lot of yellow. I used yellows for the hearts of the daisies and also for some petals of other flowers. Then I used some purple and some pink and of course some green. But the oranges I repeated throughout, or the yellows I repeated throughout. The same combination. I used the same browns in the hearts of those yellow flowers as I did in the hearts of the pink flowers. I used the green for all of the leaves, so keeping your colors to a minimum definitely helps speed up your coloring, and it also helps to make it all look like it belongs together. Now, as I said, I stamped that onto a panel that was too large for an A2 size card, so I trimmed it down with this Postal cover die, or this poster cover panel by Reverse Confetti, and then I also die cut one of the hearts that belongs in that die set. And I die cut that heart 4 or 5 more times. You can see I quickly inlaid one of the hearts there before gluing on my mini card base. I trimmed my card base down to fit behind that Postal panel so you wouldn't see any of it behind the scalloped edges. So for Eclipse die cutting, you really only need to do 2 things. You only need to cut or die cut a shape from your colored image or whatever image you have, and then you die cut that shape a couple more times. I usually do 4 or 6 layers of thick white cardstock beneath it, and then you stack them all up and you inlay that stacked up piece, and that will give it a lot of dimension, but it won't really break up the image. So it's a really subtle way of getting some texture in your coloring or your image or your card. It's a really fun way to spice up your backgrounds too. I used one of the stamps from the Valentine Sentiment stamp set. This says "with all my heart," which fit because there's a heart on my card. I stamped that with Versamark ink onto black cardstock and heat embossed it with bright white superfine embossing powder by Wow. Then I trimmed it out with my scissors. I don't often do this, but sometimes it's just really fun, especially with that loopy lettering from Reverse Confetti. I did add a really thin strip of cardboard behind it to prop it up and give it some really nice and sturdy dimension. I just glued that on with the Barely Art Precision Crafts glue again, and then it's time to figure out where to place my little gems. These are just cheap nail art gems that I got off of Amazon. Now, why do I like these sometimes? Because they are super tiny. I love card making gems. I have a bunch of them, and they definitely serve their purpose. They come in amazing colors and amazing finishes, but usually they are a little bit bigger than this, and those are perfectly fine sized for cards, but I really like the teeny tiny ones too, so that's why I grab for nail art gems sometimes. I just folded a quick matching envelope out of gray cardstock, really soft gray cardstock, using my We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board. And I'm not going to add a lot to this. I am only going to add a dash line in white gel pen, which you can't even see on camera really. But in real life, it's a really fun, subtle touch. I really like to match really white cards with just soft gray envelopes. I don't know why. It just feels right to me. I really like it. I hope you like it too. This is my finished project. Now make sure you hop along on the blog hop. So I will link my blog post for this card in the description below this video. Click on that, hop along. I personally really like the Reverse Confetti hops. They are some of my favorite hops to be a part of. I don't just say that because I'm on the design team. I really like the Reverse Confetti inspiration from all the teams, so I always hop along myself, and I hope you do too. So on my blog post, you will find links to all the other blog posts in this hop, and I hope you check them out as well. Of course, you can also subscribe to my channel for more Reverse Confetti inspiration, but also for more other videos as well. I make a lot of card making videos, and I hope you check them out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.